it's Alice, and today it's time to do some more book reviews and tell you about the books that I read in the last part of July. The first book I have to talk about today is Murder in the Caribbean by Robert Thorogood, and this is a mystery novel. It's the fourth book in the Death in Paradise series, and in this one we once again return to the island of St. Marie and we meet D.I. Richard Poole and his team, and in this one they are investigating this case where a boat has exploded in the harbor and it has killed the person who was on board, and it becomes clear that it wasn't an accident, and also that whoever did it is not done killing people. I just adore this series, and once again it was really fun to return to these characters and return to the island, and I feel like I've said this about all the books in the series, but it's true for this one as well. These books are just so fun and entertaining. I love the main character in here and how ridiculous and so very British he is, and I loved seeing the team again. Like, reading about them is always delightful, and I always just have such a good time reading these books. Like, they're just very, very enjoyable, and there were several parts in here that made me laugh. Like, there's in particular a bit in here about a chicken that has like no bearing on the story really, but I read that part and like it really made me chuckle. These books are light and super enjoyable, but that doesn't mean that they're not exciting, and I especially enjoyed the mystery in this one. I did kind of narrow it down towards the end there, but it was really fun to like go on the journey and get the reveal. I feel like this is just like the perfect cozy mystery series for summer, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because I enjoyed it that much. I do think this is the final book in the series. There are 4 in total, and I'm gonna have to like reread these in a couple of years' time because I enjoy them so much, and I have quite a forgetful brain, so by that point I will have probably forgotten all about the murders and I get to read it all over again. Secondly, I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and this is a historical fiction fantasy romance novel, and it's basically a retelling of parts of the Iliad. So it's set in Greece in the Age of Heroes, where we meet Patroclus, who is an awkward young prince who has been exiled from his home, and he has been sent to live in the court of King Peleus, who is the father of Achilles, who is about to become his lifelong companion and eventually take him to Troy. I did a reading vlog where I read this book, which you can check out if you haven't seen it, and I think that the word I used the most in that video was just gorgeous. Like, I kept saying that this is just gorgeous, and it really is. It's just a beautiful book. You all probably know that I'm generally not a huge fan of romance stories, so I was very surprised by how much I loved this book. There is other stuff going on in here as well, which I think helps. Like, there's drama and intrigue and history and mythology, but at its base it is a love story, and it's about 2 people who love each other and who are kind of like meant for each other, and I loved every minute of it. I think what does it for me with this one is the writing. It's so visceral and just gorgeous, and everything is beautiful. Like, the way the landscape is described and the way that the people are described, like everything is just beautiful, and it's such an emotional book. Like, there's so much love and heartbreak, and I just loved like the characters and the setting and the history and basically just all of it. This is just an epic love story, and it's really difficult to sum up, but it's one of the best romance stories that I've ever read, although to be fair, I haven't read a lot of them, so I don't have that much to compare it to, but I just loved this, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favorite books that I've read all year. Next, I picked up The Gospel of the Eels by Patrik Svensson. This is a non-fiction science book with a little bit of like memoir in it. So it's about the author and his father, but it's also about one of the strangest and most enigmatic creatures on Earth, the European eel. Now, I bought this book because I wanted to learn more about the eel, of all things, and I really enjoyed this because I feel like I learned quite a lot. I think the riddle of the eel is just fascinating, and so little is known about its life and the way that it goes through all of these different cycles and why it changes when it does, and a lot of the things that are known about the eel we have never actually observed before. Like, it's thought or assumed that the eel mates in the Sargasso Sea, but no one has ever actually seen an eel mate, and no one has seen an adult eel in the Sargasso Sea. So there are all of these like things that we can't really figure out, and I think it's just very interesting. And reading this book felt like I got to like peek behind the curtain of this mysterious creature, and I got to learn about the things that we think we know. And I do realize that being interested in an eel is maybe a little bit weird, but you know, life is weird and interesting. In between the chapters about the eels and its life, we get to read about the author and his relationship with his father and how they used to go eel fishing together. And I really enjoyed those parts. They're kind of like quiet and understated, but they felt very authentic, and I felt like they helped sort of bring this book together. It is slightly dissatisfying that there are very few answers in this book, though, I will admit. Like, it poses a lot of questions and it doesn't have a lot of answers, and I felt like towards the end it maybe got a little bit too philosophical with it, but I did really enjoy this, and I got to learn about something I didn't know a whole lot about, which is always fun, so I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Second to last, I read The Apfel Girls Are Gone by Felicity McLean, and this is kind of like a mystery novel, but it feels much more like contemporary or literary fiction, and it's set in Australia in the summer of 1992 when 3 girls mysteriously disappear, and then years later one of their best friends sort of returned to this suburb and is still trying to make sense of what happened back then. So this one started off really well, and then it took a little bit of a nosedive for me, unfortunately. I am really glad that I read this book though, because it's one of those books that I just needed to read to find out, because I just kept seeing it everywhere and I couldn't figure out if I wanted to read it or not, and I just needed to do it to see what I thought. And, you know, sometimes that doesn't turn out super great. I did really like the setting of this book, like the way that the summer in this suburb is described, I really loved, and I liked getting to know this little community and getting to know the characters. I found them quite interesting, both the main character whose perspective we see the story from, but also just, I really enjoyed learning more about these mysterious sisters and their family. There is a bit of suspense in here as well, and the story is structured in a way where you immediately find out that something bad is gonna happen. Like, these girls are gonna disappear, which you kind of can figure out by the title as well, I guess. And then you sort of get to read about the build-up to it, which I really enjoyed. And I feel like there's something haunting about writing a story that way. And in the beginning of this, I was loving it. Then it just got really boring, to be honest. And I don't know what happened, but it completely tapered off for me, and I just felt like it got kind of repetitive and not a lot happened. Like, some things are revealed and those things are interesting, but those moments are kind of like few and far between, and I don't know, I just kind of lost interest. And then we got to the end, and literally it was so dissatisfying because nothing happens. This does definitely have an eeriness to it that I really like, but it's not enough to make up for the things that I felt were sort of missing from this. And it just wasn't particularly exciting and probably not very memorable, so I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. Lastly, I read How to Stay Sane in an Age of Division by Elif Shafak, and this is like a little essay collection about our current world and sort of what it's like trying to live in it. This was a pretty quick read, and to be honest, I don't have that much to say about it. I liked it, I like Shafak's writing, and it was interesting to get her views and thoughts on like current politics and social issues and democracy and social media and hope and empathy. And it is quite a timely book as well, because it discusses the pandemic and what it's been like to live through it, which was very interesting. I don't know if this really introduced me to any new concepts or made me think about anything in a different way though. Like, it was just a nice little read, and it wasn't mind-blowing, but it was interesting, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay everyone, those were all the books that I had to talk about today, and as always, I would love to know what you all have been reading lately, and if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, what did you think? As usual, links to my Patreon and other social media will be in the description if you're interested, and I will see you soon. Bye!